Alright, now going back to that factoring idea. If you'll remember, when we were learning to factor and solve, we ran across some things that looked like this, that, whenever we started trying to factor them, we said, okay, well, x times x would be x squared. And now we have to think of two things that multiply together to get 1, but somehow combine to get 4. Well, our only factors of 1 are 1 times 1. And there's no way that's going to come together to give us a 4 in the middle. So we said this was not factorable. But there still has to be a way to solve it, because this is an equation. So there has to be something that we can do here. Okay, well that's called, now we have a new technique that we need to talk about, and that is called completing the square. In order to complete the square, what we have to do is create a perfect square trinomial. So what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to figure out what do we have to add to this number so that this becomes a perfect square trinomial. Well, our procedures for that are pretty clear. The first step that we need to do is we need to take half of the middle term. So in our case, in this problem that we're working with here, our middle term is going to be 10. So if we take 1/2 of 10, that would be 5. Next, we square it. So if I take that 5 and I square it, we end up with 25. Lastly, we have to add that number to complete the square. So what we're doing is we're adding that 25 to the end here. Now this creates a perfect square trinomial. What I mean by that is, if we were to try and factor this down, this would factor into x times x. Our 25 would break down into 5 times 5. And if they were both positive, that would give us that 10x in the middle. So actually, we can write this as x plus 5 squared. It is a perfect square. This trinomial factors into a perfect square. That's what we're doing when we complete the square. And also, I want you to notice that whenever we factored this down, this number here was that halved amount. That always happens. So in the next example, we're going to look at this one, and I want you to keep that in mind, because since we're working with a fraction, then we want to be careful about that. Okay, we're trying to figure out what number do we have to add in here in order to make this a perfect square trinomial. Well, again, think about our procedure. We take half of the middle term, so half of a half is a fourth. And then step 2 is to square that. So 1/4 squared would be 1/16. We're adding in 1/16 here. Now, in order to factor this down, this is a perfect square because we forced it to be that way. This will factor into, our variable is w, and then that halved amount was 1/4. So actually this factors into w plus 1/4 squared. Now in the next video we're going to use this completing the square technique in order to solve equations.